firstly, I'd like to say thank you for welcoming me back this year. It's been so amazing just to absorb and listen to everybody's research and where they are. And it's really just sparked so many ideas and furthered myself just in the last couple of days I've been with you. So thank you for having me. So last year I presented a literature review, which I had done on outfield teaching. I am an ed candidate, so I'm doing my doctorate with Nottingham Trent University in England. I'm in my third year. So I've just submitted my ethics approval. I am waiting for that to come back so that I can go out and collect my data. My presentation today is on my methodology section, and it's explaining to you what I intend to do. Now, the feedback that you guys gave me last year was amazing. And again, by doing the presentation last year, it really made me think and look at different avenues, etc. So at the end of the presentation, I really welcome any feedback you have, just to help me progress, as well as you guys have done. So I'm looking in personal knowledge at design and technology. So follows on really well from John's presentation that he has just done. I want to look at personal knowledge and how that shapes the lives and professional identities of teachers. So first of all, I'm just going to explain what I mean by personal knowledge, because there's lots of different, with anything, there's lots of different definitions out there and schools of thought. So personal knowledge, I'm looking at this through the lens that it's gained through subjective lived experiences. It is what encompasses who you are, and it can be explicit or it can be implicit. So it could be your tacit knowledge as well as the knowledge that I give to my students every day. So design technology in England, and again, this follows on really well from John's discussion that he's just had with us. I just want to give a bit of context about that, because other than Fiona, who's here at this conference, I think everybody else is international. So design and technology in England is exactly what John has just said. We have moved on to solving real and relevant problems within a variety of contexts. And it's all about considering their own and others' needs, their wants of the client. It used to be exactly what John said, where I've got a big red cross here to show it used to be very compartmentalized into textiles and food and graphics and resistant materials and systems and electronics. But since 2017, they have been amalgamated together. The only exception is food, which is now a separate qualification for our school leavers, but actually it still remains in the national curriculum under design and technology. So if you are a design and technology teacher in England, you are expected to have this knowledge of textiles, food, systems and electronics, all those compartmentalized areas, and kind of bring them all together and amalgamate them now for the qualification within England. So that is quite significant for my research, especially where we're talking about out of field teaching, and we're talking about maybe the proximity that a teacher feels from their specialist area. So yesterday we talked about near and far, and that has been talked about within the literature before. And I really like that idea. My degree, as I said last year, is in fashion. So I feel very near to textiles when I'm teaching anything along the lines of fibers and fabric and printmaking and dyeing, etc. However, when I'm teaching systems and electronics or food, I feel very far away from my specialism and very out of field. Interestingly enough, actually, a personal antidote, because I'm still a full-time teacher, is I got asked to teach food for Key Stage 3 for the upcoming academic year. And actually, although that would be in-field technically for me, because my qualification is textiles, which therefore puts me as a DT teacher, which is food is under D&T. I felt really uncomfortable in the thought of doing food. I've done it before, but I know it's not a strong point for me. And I actually elected to teach child development to fill up my timetable next year. So that is completely out of field. But yeah, I'm more comfortable personally teaching the completely out of field, technically subject from what I'm certified to my in-field relation of food. And I feel closer aligned to child development than I do to food, which is under my certification. So that just popped into my head earlier when people were talking about electing to teach an out of field subject, and I thought, actually, I've just done that, and so that might bring a new dimension to my research as well, experiencing that. So non-specialist teaching in England, this is the percentage of teachers without relevant qualifications. Now, the definition of relevant qualifications in England is that the teacher has a post A-level qualification. Now, A-level is typically a qualification that a student takes age 16 to 18. So they are saying that 21% of design and technology teachers in England last year, 2023, did not continue with design and technology after they left formal education. Other subjects in England, which at the moment were hit in 2023, was drama. 22% of teachers were out of field or didn't have a relevant qualification. 23% of history teachers and 22% of media study teachers. Now, media studies isn't on the national curriculum. That's often taken as an optional subject by some schools. Here, we've broken down design and technology a bit further. So design and technology, you can see where the change was made here to the specifications. This was kind of at the height of having specialist teachers. 85, nearly 86% of hours taught in a typical week in design and technology was by a teacher who holds a post A-level qualification. It's interesting that the government are still reporting, however, in the breakdown of the compartmentalized subjects of design and technology, which is something they're trying to eradicate, but yet that's still coming through in their data. So most recently, as we said, all of D&T, there was nearly 79%. However, when you break that down, this then shows you that, again, similar to John's findings, resistant materials, which is wood and metal and plastics, polymers, etc., that has the most amount of in-field teachers, whilst graphics and food are lower down. So what I looked at following my literature review last year was the concept of Frohness. So Frohness, you might have heard of from Martin Heidegger. And Frohness is a concept which is used in philosophy whereby humans are thrown into a situation without their own agency or without their own preference or without, their own desires. Now, lots of the impact of out-of-field teaching I found related to the idea of Frohness. And again, I need to look at this and revisit this after your research presentations yesterday and this morning, because this is obviously with the assumption that the teachers weren't asked and that maybe they didn't agree with it, which is quite often an experience here in England that I have seen. Not to say I haven't seen people being asked, I have, but equally I have seen this Frohness, which can impact the well-being and self-identity. So I'm actually, I think, quite interested in that area of it, more so than the teachers that teach with by electing, but more so with the concept of Frohness. So I want to know how out-of-field teaching affects the identity of the teacher. Now, originally, I was looking at just professionally. However, I'd really am quite interested in personally as well, outside of the classroom, and actually maybe how that does affect their home lives or so forth. Because again, I don't think that's an area within the literature that was very clear. There was things about it might make people anxious or it might give them stress, you know, those kind of things. But actually, it didn't really dive deep into that personal aspect. And the two, you know, it can be argued are related, obviously, your personal and your professional identity, you know, this holistic identity I really want to consider. Um, the perceived distance, the proximity from how the teacher feels they are to that subject. Does that change the impact that out of field teaching has on them? If I feel marginally close to graphics because in my fashion degree I did lots of graphic designing, etc., and promotion and photography, does that make me the impact of teaching graphics less likely than the impacts of teaching food? That's something I'm interested in finding out. And also, like we said, the challenges and the coping mechanisms that out of field teachers use. What is common? How does that support them? Who supports them? Now, I've elected to undertake this with heuristic inquiry. The reason being this is in the roots of phenomenology. However, heuristic inquiry is really concerned with the living experiences. Phenomenology is often with the lived experience. But heuristic inquiry, the word living is so important. It's that continuous, and that word again we talked about earlier, everyday experiences. Um, Also with heuristic inquiry, the role of the researcher is really important because the researcher should have experienced the phenomenon that they are researching. This should be used to guide their exploration. It needs to be, I need to be very careful that I don't allow my own experiences to be biased to my exploration or my analysis, especially. But it does mean that as a researcher, I will be very upfront with my participants. They will know that I'm a teacher of design technology. They will know that I've taught out of field. They will know that I've kind of gone amongst these compartmentalizations. And the reason being is because that will hopefully help to build rapport, and that will allow me to get a much deeper data collection from them. However, as I said, I need to be very careful that it doesn't turn into something unprofessional and that it is still very structured. With heuristic inquiry as well, you're always wondering, you're always focused on that kind of out of field teaching. There are moments where you kind of take a step back, because within heuristic inquiry, they say a pause, a rest from that inquiry, that research is sometimes where that result comes in your head, or you think about something that you've never thought about before because you're so relaxed and you know you're not up against the wall trying to complete this assignment. So having those breaks is really important. It really values intuition and tacit knowledge, both from the researcher and the participants. And it really, really values internal frames of reference. So that is the teacher and my own personal knowledge, and my beliefs and values, and that of the participants as well. So it's kind of co-researching with the participants. They're often called co-researchers rather than participants. And when I do my data collection, I will be using dialogue. And I spent a long time looking at interviews and conversations. And the idea of unfolding dialogue is really where it's an even conversation, and it's not me sat there asking particular questions and expecting particular responses or waiting for responses, but it's really guided by the participant, and it unfolds against what they are saying, and I probe against their agenda so that they have agency within that dialogue. When I do my data collection, I'll be doing my own self-dialogue by journaling, etc. But heuristic inquiry really values art-based research as well because it values intuition. So what I would like to do, and again, I researched this for a long time, is to invite my participants to complete a collage. And the idea of the collage is that it will prompt that unfolding dialogue. At first, I wanted to do art journaling or things like that. However, through research, I found limitations and restrictions to do that. And it could be that my sample were then biased, and some people that might wanted to have taken part may not have done with art journaling. However, with collage, everybody can tear something up and stick it on a piece of paper or use some scissors. I also love the idea that collage is kind of metaphorical to out-of-field teaching. Because when you become a teacher, you are you go through your certification and you become a whole, as in a teacher, an in-field teacher. However, if you're asked to teach out of field, there's like deconstruction of certain elements of your pedagogy or certain elements of maybe your beliefs and values or who you are or how you approach something. And collage, again, is that embodiment of that deconstruction. So I'd like them to complete collages. I'm looking for 4 people, and ideally within their register of interest. I've got some questions which based on PCK. So last year I'd done loads of research on PCK, which is, the core knowledge that's believed a teacher needs. And lots of arguments against that as well, but this is based on PCK, and there are 5 key questions that I have designed to help me identify whether the teachers sit in out of field, that they're certified out of field but they feel out of field, they certify out of field but they feel in field, they certified in field but they feel out of field, or they're certified and feel in field. Originally, I wanted the teachers to have this matrix and to plot on where they feel maybe teaching to certain topics or certain areas of their curriculum. However, in conjunction with my supervisors, we felt that a link art scale would be better. I've purposely done a 4 link art scale rather than a 5 because actually, I want to remove that neutrality because that's not going to help me with deciding where they are on the matrix. So for instance, I would strongly agree that my fashion degree is a qualification which is suitable to teach design and technology. It could be that somebody actually did a performing arts degree and they studied stage design or costume design, therefore they might put that they agree. Or it could be that they did PM fitness and they strongly disagree. So this will help me to see where they fit within that table. As I said, they will go and do their collage. We will then come together. And what we will do is use the collage with an elicitation tool so that we will go through all the elements of the collage and what does that represent? What does that mean? And by trying to understand their collage, we can then explore that further. That will open up the dialogue, unfold in dialogue. And then I can find the themes for my analysis. So the analysis will be iterative, it's going to be ongoing. It will be participant checked. So as I said, in heuristic inquiry, they're usually called co-researchers. And so, I will summarize my transcript, my findings, my analysis with that participant to check that I really do understand what they are saying. And that will really help where I need to ensure I do not put my own biases within this research from my own experiences. I'll pick the themes up and then I hope to present those as narrative portraits. We had some vignettes yesterday, and that's the kind of idea that I'm going along for the presentation of the data. So that's kind of what I intend to do. I think that is my time up, which brings me on to kind of the feedback and any questions and answers really. And I really, I won't be offended at all by anything. I'm really privileged to be here and to just kind of listen to all of your professional knowledge that you have to help me on my way. Thank you.